How much value is AI really creating?
Command AI.
The conversation about AI usefulness has matured considerably over the past year. Outright denial of its capabilities has diminished as more people have seen for themselves what it can do for their line of work. The battle is now over exactly how much value it proves. Fair to say, I think that we had a lot of haters. One particular point of tension between AI's boosters and detractors has been the disconnect between the reported increases in coders' output and the apparent lack of corresponding boom in product or value creation. MIT's Mert Demira and co-authors tracked software developers' work before and after they adopted AI tools. Coders created or edited almost 300% more files, but that boost was halved to 150% by the time they got to the number of discrete pieces of work submitted for review, and that in turn shrunk fivefold to roughly 30% uplift in the number of full software releases. Coders created and edited almost 300% more files. Do you know how much clarity you get from actually building something, and the desire to completely start something from scratch, because it's like, oh, we now have a bigger picture, we know how all of these modules and everything works together, I can rebuild this in half the time and 10 times better because I just understand the architecture a lot more. I think we all can relate to the fact that when you get your hands dirty in something, you just understand it that little bit better, and you can, let's say, for example, have you ever worked in a Photoshop file or a Figma file or whatever for
Photoshop, I use
days
Photoshop.
even, Photoshop for days even, and then you lose all of your work? And then, video, perfect.
With video, yeah.
You're able to then create that video from scratch in half the time.
Yeah.
Because you know exactly what you're going to do, right? You know exactly what you need to do. There's so much experimentation, some hurdles that you've overcome, blah, 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 blah. It's the same in code, right? There's so many apps that I wish I could just start from scratch now. And it's like, I know, like, what we thought we knew at the beginning of the project is now very different towards the end of the project.
Yeah.
Imagine that on steroids, when you can use AI to set off 5, variations of one app, and it's a click of a button just to delete that work. Like, you've barely lifted a finger.
20.
There we go, right? You do 20 versions, you've barely lifted a finger, you become so detached. Half the reason why we don't rebuild stuff from scratch, or we used to not rebuild stuff from scratch, is merely because it's just so, yes, you build it in half the time, but it's just so much effort. And also that you love what you build. With AI now, you don't become attached to the code that you write. You literally can just bin it, right? So when they say 300% more files and whatever, don't disregard the fact that it is quite normal to then have that halved by the eventual steady release. That I don't think anything has necessarily changed there.
When I look at the overall speed of things, AI hasn't made me much faster, because the speed an organization moves at, or an individual moves at, is the speed of decisions. Like, it depends on how fast can you make your mind up about something until you can actually go to the next phase, that is publishing, that is doing the next thing, whatever it is. So you might create, I might create 20 different versions of a UX flow, but I have to make a decision, and better it to be informed decision, before I can move to the next one. Does that make sense? I can create a lot, but I can only output something truly to the world if I make that decision.
Yeah, no, I agree. And even more so now with AI, because again, it's so low effort that the desire to then fill that space with even more, experimentation and learning and experiments is tenfold. Modest gain once that work has passed through all of the human bottlenecks associated with reviewing and releasing production grade work. Now this, again, it's just not an apples to apples. However, I do appreciate that, these are, well, this is the biggest point of this article. It's not talking about apps that you're releasing out into the world as an individual, right? It's talking, and that aren't being used, because, by the way, this is kind of the undertone of the whole thing, is that loads of apps are being created, but none of them are, people aren't using them or whatever. It's actually more to do with inside of an organization, how much of the work that people are creating through their code, how much of it actually gets into the production version of the app. And there's any good company will have a flow of checks and balances that take place in between all that, and then if something's wrong, it gets sent back, or if there's some code that's wrong, it will get sent back to the developer. This is kind of like normal par for course, as they say, when it comes to software development. It's not really, it's not talking about the influx of apps that are coming out. The market increase in mobile app releases over the last year has not been accompanied by any increased downloads. Most of the new apps failed to capture even the modest audience. So I think that's roughly what they're kind of saying is here, but the bulk of this article really leans on inside the organization. So here's where we get to the Uber stuff, like Uber CEO Dara Khosrow. Do you know how to say it?
He's Iranian, yes. No, say it. Like I'm trying to.
Okay, go on. Oh, you were trying to teach me. Okay, what's it? Go on, say it again.
Khosrowshahi.
Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi revealed the company had blown through its entire AI budget for 2026 in one quarter. I'll just say something on that as well. You give people some AI to play with during the most exciting time in AI, they're literally going to do so much stuff with it, personal, private, they're going to play around with it. This isn't indicative of much. It's like kids in a candy store, basically. However, the sentiment is that it's getting very expensive. So they are planning to switch much of its AI use to lower cost models, reserving frontier tools for special use cases. Pairing cheap open source AI agents with top end models acting as sporadic advisors delivered better results at much lower cost. And I think that's the play, to be honest. And I would even go as far as saying local AI might be the play of doing the grunt work, but then the frontier stuff is the fables that's creating the plans.
They can't point out to the features that they have been releasing lately. They can't connect the features they are releasing to the amount of tokens that they are using. So maybe their employees are just, as you said, like kids in the candy store. They are just using the tokens for whatever, like replying to an email, putting it or starting the dev server.
Exactly. Yeah, and people aren't trained. You're literally giving the keys to a digger, like a JCB or something like this, to someone who's just been riding go-karts. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a whole new paradigm that we're all trying to figure out, and the only way to figure it out is just by spending it on tokens. That's just the way it is. That's what it is. Again, this is unfair. This literally the first quarter that you could not choose a worse time for people to be like spunking their tokens on starting dev servers. Do you know what I mean? It would not be unreasonable to see all of this as evidence that AI's capacity to deliver genuine value has been vastly exaggerated. And I do agree. However, as we've just discussed, there are plenty of other factors that they're not considering. I don't know what this guy does, if he's he kind of looks like a developer, to be honest, let's be honest. But it's hard to really trust someone in the media that they actually know what day-to-day development looks like. I always love drawing parallels to history. I love spotting the cyclical events that take place, that we're all standing on the shoulders of giants and this and that. So I highlighted this. In the case of electricity, and this is really interesting, in the late 19th and early 20th century, productivity gains were modest where factories simply replaced giant steam engines with giant electric motors, but left the rest of the machinery and layout unchanged. The boom arrived decades later when engineers fitted individual workstations with their own small motors. So, we've been given the key again. We've been given the keys to the JCB, and we're yet to kind of figure it out. And it might be a little bit later until we actually know what it is we're dealing with and where these where all of these fit. And speaking of Uber, they're going to be maybe not so much anymore, but during these startup phases, there's this desire to move fast. So you're going to just use them everything max all the time, because you want to get stuff done quickly and to the best quality. Like, why would you sacrifice anything as a growing startup? Again, I'm not saying I agree with that consumerist attitude, but that's just the way it is in startups. They're literally just like, there's every incentive to move fast and win the race of whatever startup they're starting.
But what are they trying to build? So in case of Uber, I could imagine like new features and maybe new services, new markets, things like this. But there are so many startups and apps that do, I don't know, like an invoicing app that you got. What do they want to do with millions of tokens? Do they want to build Netflix in the tool? Like, what do you need so many tokens for?
There's two aspects to that, and one of them, it's not really for us to say. There are going to be some startups out there that are going to be the Uber of, that old saying, we're the Uber of dog veterinary services, or we're the Uber of Thai brides, or something like
Tinder
this,
for horses.
Yeah, exactly right. So there's going to be plenty of startups out there who truly believe they're on the cutting edge of innovation when it comes to their product. We don't know who they are, whatever. What you just described then in the second part, which is more so, and where my belief lies when I talk about software, SaaS is dead, it's about, I think the future is in your own software. Maybe there are some data warehouses, which I think a lot of money is going to be in data warehouses and things like that, but the software itself is going to be built by the company themselves, by a very small dev team, and they are going to ingress that data and use it for whatever they need to use it for. What that company does, I don't know. Maybe SaaS and whatever is going to be completely dead, and we're going to be building these AI, well, not even AI tools, sorry, this software to help vets run, or plumbers do their job, or all these, what do they call it, white collar, I think. That's where I believe we're going, and that's where I'm putting my bets, truthfully. So yes, you're right. It sounds like you're kind of in that position too, but there's going to be so many companies who do think they're on the cutting edge of innovation with a new SaaS product that they hope that we're all going to throw money at. But truthfully, I look at a piece of software and I think, how do I build that myself? And I often just build it myself, saving myself hundreds of dollars per year, per month, whatever it is. That's the way I look at things. I'm just like, well, I can just build that myself now, and slowly I think companies are going to be doing that, Does that make sense? Like, there's two aspects to what you're saying there.
Definitely. I'm doing that as well. Like, I'm building my own software. I'm just looking into starting from a open source version of an LMS for like a course platform that I've been using and paying for. I'm like, I'm not gonna pay for this anymore, because I want to do things with it that I can't. What should I do now? Pay them and not be able to do the things that I want? Fuck no, I'm gonna build my own, and it's going to take me, I don't know, next week I'll have it ready.
And it doesn't matter if it has bugs. Doesn't matter if it doesn't look or behave or certain way that you don't want it. One, you fix those bugs in time anyway. Two, it's not a high security risk. It's just your little...
And the point is also, very often, this is what I'm seeing recently so much, is it doesn't, like, my app doesn't need to do as much as the best app in the market. Fuck no. Like, my app needs to do the things I want to do the way I want to do it. And 99.99% of the time, the apps that are out there are just overblown with features that I will never use. So why am I paying for this?
My website is going to be having a massive update. Literally before the show, I'm rewriting the content all around these things. I need to work on the copy a little bit more, but it is about why pay all this money for software that only does part of what you need, and any features that you do want take months and months and months to get fixed, and you're perpetually bound to paying for that software for the life of your company. How about pay a small-ish upfront cost that's then software for the rest of your life that you own, and that if you want a new feature, you get exactly what you want within days, as opposed to potentially sometimes even months for a lot more money, you know? So yeah, you know.
There was this interesting video from Primeagen saying that they will probably, like, these companies will probably have something like AI credits for the team or like the individuals, and the goal of the companies will be to save money on these credits. So you as an individual, so you work for a company, you have like $10,000 worth of AI credit. If you use it, you can, but if you don't, and save the company money, you might get all that money that you saved for your own pocket, but still get your work done. So I thought that that's also like an interesting idea that might come true.
Yeah,
who knows?
Very good incentivization. It really puts the power in the developers' hands. Do they want to buy themselves time, or do they want to buy themselves, or do they want to put money in their pocket? You know, and it comes up. It's up to you, and that's all it's doing is buying you time. You know.
Yeah, but like I'm not really sure about the time. Like, I'm not sure if AI can make you that much faster in every area. I understand, like, I see AI as an enabler, but I don't see it as making me that much faster in every case. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to that last 10%, that's where you see, oh shit, like so many accumulated decision depth. That's like AI. So you let the AI to build whatever you are building or design whatever you are designing. It looks good at the start, but like at the very end, like at the 95% where you want to push it, that's where you see there's a depth.
Diminishing returns.
There's a depth, like the decisions that you didn't make, you let the agent to do it, and now you have to deal with them. And I see this everywhere. So it's not making me faster at the end, not that much, but it's making me faster at the start.
Yeah, and I think again that's probably what this article is trying to say, really. Like, is that actually speeding us up? Is it just creating a debt that we have to clean up later on? Is it costing us X amount or whatever? So, but a nice analogy with electricity towards the end, saying we might just still be figuring this out. So, you know, it's it's interesting. This is part of a larger conversation on my show, Cmd+AI, which we stream live every single week. We discuss the news and all things related to AI in the world of design and web. Catch us next week and join in the banter.
Cmd+AI.